Good morning and welcome to Chasing Energy. I'm Daniel Lucas. I'm so grateful that you have chosen to spend a little bit of time with me today. It is my morning. It may not be your morning. I got up extra early because I have not done a good job of set aside time to edit these podcasts. I definitely stay on schedule when it comes to recording them. And in fact, I have a wonderful list of guests coming up that I'm super excited about, including the CEO of Mida Red Light, Scott Shavery, as well as some health experts from all over the globe. We have one from the Czech Republic and one from Kansas, but you'll hear about those in the coming weeks. Today, we're going to talk to Fayzah, who is a dance instructor, and she has a dance video that you can get. It's called Dance Hacks. I've got a link in the show notes here. If you look her up on YouTube, you will find a great number of years that she has been posting dance performances. And in fact, I added a clip into the show notes of her performing in Seoul just after this interview was recorded. What are we going to talk about today? Because this is definitely outside of my own. I'm not in any way an avid dancer. You can add like weddings and occasional birthday parties. Although I have taken dance instruction before, it didn't really hit home. Movement as a method to shift your mood. When formal and non-formal dance is best. How classes are preferred to video lessons, and how she kind of had to use the more video during the pandemic. Movement when dealing with fear. So you have fight or flight or freeze, and how you can use movement to sort of loosen up and open up your breathing. That's towards the end of the episode. Fayzah and I had a brief discussion on travel and movement, and we talked about how she actually considers travel her time to fast, which I thought was a pretty fascinating idea. And then again, to get any of these links for what we talked about, they're in the show notes. Thank you so much for listening to Chasing Energy. I am going to a new software, and the editing process, I've just dreaded it because every time I go in here to edit a podcast, I have to figure out where everything's at again. So thank you for your patience with that. I hope you enjoy the episode. Wonderful. Fayzah, thank you so much for making time today to join me on Chasing Energy. Tell me how you're doing and where you're at.
Thank you, Daniel. It's a pleasure. I am on the west coast of the United States. I've touched down a few weeks ago from Mexico. I've been living internationally.
Okay. How long were you in
I was
Mexico?
there during COVID for the past 2 years.
The past 2 years? And what were your favorite things about Mexico?
Being able to get medicine without prescriptions.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Nice. Okay. Well, that's nice to know.
No, the nature.
Anything else?
I love jungle. It's my favorite scenery. Leaves as big as your face. The wet climate. The beautiful bodies of water. Cenotes, caves.
Yeah. Some of the most beautiful ocean water I've ever seen was in Mexico. Yeah. Well, welcome to the States then. So today we want to talk about, this is a little bit out of my routine, but we want to talk a little bit about incorporating movement in order to create a better connection with our thoughts and our creativity and things like that. So I'd first like to start by asking, how did you get started in dance, Fayzah?
Dance was always my thing. I was one of those, taking ballet since I was 3. And dance was just always something that I stayed dedicated to. Even as an angsty teen, I still kept my discipline. And then I became a DJ in my teens.
Let's slow down right there, Fayzah. When you say an angsty teen, tell me how it kept you grounded in a time where I think all of us are kind of confused or angry or whatever. Tell me what you mean by dancing helped you during that time.
As an angsty teen or during the pandemic?
Yeah,
right.
As an angsty teen.
Yes. So, I needed to stay clean and healthy to a point because, dance it requires it's a kinesthetic intelligence art. So I think it kept me respecting my body when I definitely, I thought I was invincible, and yeah.
Okay, so what you're saying is, it sounds to me like the discipline required to perform at that level, sort of by attrition or whatever, you had to choose to live a sort of a cleaner, more disciplined life just so that you could perform and dance. What kind of, were you in performances or competitions or what?
In class. I didn't know it at the time, but yeah, I think it sort of unconsciously led me to caring and, let's say, respecting my body at a young age.
Okay, that's a great segue there. That's a great segue. All right, so you were up. So I'm up to your teenage years. Then what?
So then I started DJing, and I love music. I didn't have a TV. We didn't have a TV growing up. We had a music room. My dad is a musician, so at the time that was also difficult growing up because everybody's watching TV shows. I had no idea what they were talking about. But now, I was always surrounded by music and musical instruments, and I love a great variety of music. So I started DJing, and then I was interested. Music always comes first. Dance is a consequence of music. So whatever music I was interested in, for a while it was Brazilian music. I mean, it still is, but funk music, hip hop. Then I wanted to learn the dance styles that went along with those types of music.
Yeah. All right. And so where are you at today in terms of where does dance fit in your life today?
I'm a professional dancer. I have toured all over the world, Asia, Europe, South America, States, Canada. It's a huge part of my life. And I do have different approaches. I mean, dance is a discipline, just like martial arts, just like a sport. And then there's also a lot of creativity that goes into it, and imagination and storytelling. And I also do something I call wellness dance, and a sort of medicinal dance, which sort of links. I don't know if I would even use let's say health and wellness and dance. And so there's a different approach. It's not that keep your arm, but this up here or down here. Yeah, it's more holistic.
So when you talk about being a professional dancer, does that mean you go on like tours and things like that, or
yes, it means,
how does that
teaching
work?
classes, teaching workshops, doing private coaching. I've choreographed for operas. I've been a dancer in an opera, choreographed for plays, music videos, artists. There's a lot of different. But teaching and performing and touring is the bulk of it.
Have you happened to heard of, is it Twyla Tharp? Yeah, I've read a couple of her books, and she's in her 80s now, and I would have to say that some part of her message is the basis for when I started a little over a year ago, and that is this. She talks about when you're in your 30s versus your 40s versus your 50s and 60s, and so on, with how you have to manage energy as a dancer. And her point was, by the time you're in your 60s, if you have a day that's good, you had better use like every minute of your energy that afternoon, because she says you get like 3 or 4 hours of good energy at that age. And that's a big part of what made me sort of do the podcast. I hadn't thought of that segue since in a while, but just how you need to be much more disciplined with as you age, with how do you use your energy. What you talked about, not having TV, for example. TV is something where I go, if I spend an hour watching this, I'm going to be done for the day. And I know that that's a trade-off, for example. And by the way, there are plenty of days where I just want to be a passive thinker and I don't want to think, so I do watch the show. But just being more diligent about how I manage those opportunities, and Twyla Tharp was a big influence on that. Thanks for the mention there and filling me in. So let's talk about, when did you start to see how dance could cause people to change? Maybe an example.
Well, I guess I'll speak to what you just said, because that was pretty interesting for me. I was one of those really energetic, go. Rest is actually a really important part of dance and sports. I've had autoimmune situations where I needed to self-heal, and I haven't been injured that much dance, but certainly I can't speak to age in the 60s or 7 or anything like that, but I do know one thing is that I don't really subscribe to this commonly used phrase of as you get older. I don't say that. I honestly feel more strong and flexible than I have been or than I've ever been. I think you get more finessed. I mean, of course, if you're doing point work or gymnastics or certain things that, yes, definitely overuse. That's why there's tennis elbow. They're overusing will wear and tear on your body. However, most people that I encounter don't age. They stop doing what they were doing. And that's the laziness. And so I think that's interesting because I've been in Asia and I've seen these 80-year-old ladies that have done Tai Chi every day and they can hold a squat for 15 minutes, no problem. Or I also did a capoeira, which is a Brazilian martial art. And there's masters, they call them mestres, in their 70s, and they're dropping 20-year-olds like hotcakes. So, yeah.
Okay, so talk to me about when you think about movement and dance as a way to for people to self-develop themselves, or a way of getting unstuck, or a way of triggering creativity. What are some advice that you give people?
And you're speaking about just a sort of a baseline, maybe somebody who hasn't moved that much or who doesn't identify with themselves as a dancer. Did I get that right?
I think I would say if you're having to coach people through getting unstuck, they're probably not natural dancers. They're probably like me. It's something we might do at a wedding or something like that, but it's not something that we do enough.
For me, this really speaks to confidence and being okay with vulnerability in certain parts of your personality. I think we've all experienced maybe seeing a speaker and they're so on and they just look like they just want every moment to be perfect, and then all of a sudden they drop their pen and it becomes a human moment, and then we fall in love with them then. So with some of my students, who are coming to me more for this sort of opening creativity, they've become so stuck as adults in their belief system about what they're allowed to do or not when it comes to gesture, the way they're moving their body, or express themselves. And there's a lot of persona that I think people need to unwind in order to really free up their dancing.
Okay, so you're saying that rigidity in movement is often associated or correlated with rigidity in thinking, meaning they don't know quite often that it's much better to go outside of the lines per se, or instead of painting by color, just make up your own color. Getting them to change and experiment,
it
right?
Doesn't even need to be that like, whoa, I'm talking about maybe, let's say a guy likes to run his hands in his hair, and maybe he'll go out on the dance floor and try. Maybe he's seen a TikTok or something and does this weird shuffle with, forgetting on if like I mentioned, I have this dancing hacks program. So if you just bend your knees, then you relax instead of, it's like when some people start learning salsa and they're going 1, 2, 1, 2, 3 instead of sinking into the movement. And they don't know, well, why do I look different? So if I would say, and the same thing happens in life, and that's why the confident people are the ones that are the most comfortable with themselves. So if this guy, he's like, oh, well, I guess if you just go back and forth, or I puff my chest, and it just looks really unnatural and silly, whereas maybe his natural movement is to go like that, and he could just kind of like, find a way to be himself, and then it looks like, oh, like
Yeah.
attractive.
So it sounds like the former is trying to follow a pattern, and the latter, which is the one you recommend, is trying to feel the pattern, meaning bend your knees, be a part of the movement, as opposed to saying go from this
Definitely.
spot to
Yeah,
this
feeling
spot.
is, I think, one of the second or third hacks in there. Feeling and listening to the music.
Okay. Bending your knees, that's a good start. What else would you tell us for the dancing hacks?
Listen to the music, instead of trying to.
So when you say listen, do you mean start by finding what is the rhythm,
Just
or what?
listening when music is layered and you can express different parts. There's only one rule in dance. If it's dance, not expressive movement. I mean, there's, in some of my self-development workshops, we move, we just, whatever, wiggling or, just different and this isn't dancing, this is moving. In dance, there's one rule: listen to the music. Otherwise, you're not dancing. Dancing is a consequence of music. So, with that, listening. What kind of song is it? If it's there's a reason there's a mosh pit for punk music, and it's in the music. And there's a reason that there's hip movements in Afro-Latin music.
Okay, so going back to your example about the gentleman who maybe saw a TikTok video and wanted to do a particular movement, in that case, he was trying to focus on completing a movement as opposed to letting the music
Absolutely.
lead the way. Okay, I'm loving this because I'm completely ignorant in this field, and you're educating
Also,
me quite a
another
bit
thing I'll
here.
add is mood. I mean, people, a lot of them unfortunately feel like they need drugs to do it. And I keep trying to say, like, no, you'll be even more deeply connected if you get to it in this way and connect, I mean, they're to each their own, but there's an avenue to connecting with the music that will help you. This is why people heal through dance and music. I always say beats are the best medicine if you're depressed or sad. It changes your mood, music, and so it can be cathartic. You can utilize that to heal if you're not feeling well. I mean, it's moving is very healthy as a way to release pent-up blocks, stress, emotions, and if there's a song and you can just allow yourself to just kind of get sort of lost in that. There's a reason that in a lot of ancient traditions, trance dance was a medicinal practice to heal ailments.
Okay, so on that note, tell me a little bit about when you advise people whether it's better that they start or work on formal, like West Coast swing type things, versus just sticking to free movement. What is the time and place for each of those in your mind, and how do you judge which one is right for which type of personality?
Absolutely. Well, partner dance, a lot of people join because they want a community. They want to meet people that they would be attracted to and want to be close with and dance with. And definitely take class, because another thing is there's only so much you can learn from video. There's certain handholds, certain little things that are happening that I pride myself on giving away secrets and details that took me years and years to learn. Like if somebody had just told me, oh, if it's not working because I'm not keeping my chest in towards you and you can't feel that, it's very feely and detailed. So certainly taking lessons, and also you're with another person, and so you need to get familiar with their weight and the way that they feel and what's comfortable for them, and read their body language. And there's ways of breathing together and syncing up to feel comfortable together, and create those signals so that it can be a nonverbal communication.
Yeah, it's what you're referring to is like it's called tacit knowledge, meaning it's not, you can't quite get it out of a book. You kind of have to have your hands in
That's it.
An example is if you read how to make a dough, and then you actually go and try to make the dough. It's a completely different experience. You've got to learn like how much, when it's at the right hydration and things like that. So I can speak food. Dance, I'm a little bit behind on, but when you talk about that, that's what I think of. Like when I haven't gone in a while, but when I do go to the local dance studio, it is amazing how, you're right, how you twirl and hold that hand and step back at a certain pace. Those are things where I think, man, none of this would click unless I was doing it in person. So with that in mind, I want you to tell me, how did the pandemic affect sort of like your experience of helping others to dance or your experience dancing?
Yeah, absolutely. During the pandemic, I did some Instagram lives with another colleague who does self-development work as well. And a lot of the things that we do are body intelligence based. So they're still on my Instagram if you want to check them out. Practices for relieving stress during turbulent times and with different themes. So there's a lot of information there, free information about different ways of, the changing posture and moving through stress, and even communication and handling communication in a way that where sometimes our emotions sort of bubble up and, take over. So sorry, what was the question exactly?
The question was about how did you handle dancing with yourself or teaching other people during
right.
COVID? And so you said Instagram was one of the ways.
And I also taught classes online. I collaborated with New York Dance Week. It's a program, so I was teaching online and doing offering, classes and workshops during that time.
Mm-hmm.
And also for myself, I just found, for me, I would do something in the morning where I would just wake up and put on some music and, better than coffee, and just get the energy flowing and the blood rushing and,
Yeah, so I'm going to say two things on that note. First one on the COVID is that I think it's very wonderful that people, I feel, and this could be a bias, I feel that people are starting to see that there are a lot of needs with the human nature that aren't being fulfilled through technology. And during COVID, the vast majority of people I knew in my life were saying, well, now I have permission to watch all the Netflix I want and drink a little more and things like that. And I was going, yeah, but that's going to lose its novelty pretty quick. And I think the human nature is, especially with the number of antidepressants that were currently being prescribed in our nation, some of which are valid, but many of which are because of bad lifestyle choices. And I think we're at a very sobering time where people are realizing we need this connection, okay? With the understanding there was a pause there, the need for connection is real. The second thing I was going to say was, when you talk about movement being better than coffee, I have found that there's a lot of science that says it's not good to have coffee when you first wake up. And I love coffee, by the way, but it's actually better to have it when you've been up for about an hour and 15 minutes. And there's a scientific reason for that. I won't get into that right now.
You can say that later, because I love coffee as well.
I love coffee too, but unfortunately, when you first wake up, your adenosine receptors are naturally at their best. And if you take the coffee, they bind to the adenosine receptors, and you're basically going to miss out on the free boost of energy, because the coffee is going to wear off and you're going to have a worst afternoon crash. Having said that, if you wait an hour to 90 minutes and then have the coffee, it's much easier to go into your midday afternoon and not be reliant on the coffee to get started. What I have noticed over the last probably 1 or 2 years is, as long as I incorporated movement shortly after getting up, I was fine. Like, I'd come back after running an hour or something, and I'd come home, and then after I cleaned up, I'd have my coffee. And number one, I enjoyed it a lot more because it wasn't just to get me moving, but the movement itself was the waking force, right? The coffee was the bonus. It was this is my treat to myself. I hate when something like a ritual becomes a crutch, and you say, I do this because I have to, and whereas I think of it as something that's it's a privileged thing, and I treat coffee as one of those things in life where I go, this is my gift to myself today, and I enjoy it. Food, I'm very much the same way. If it's not good food, I mean, there's plenty of clean food that I think is delicious, but if it's something that I don't feel good about, I just skip it. I'll fast. Historically, I've just eaten something dumb or plain just because it was there. But now I go, if I'm not, like, in some way, if my body doesn't need it or I'm not craving it, then it isn't even worth it to me. I'd rather just be hungry and look forward to the next
Yeah, I've been
next
doing
thing.
that too. I find even just putting some like a bag of nuts in my purse. So it's that running errands thing that can end up being that unhealthy snack or quick, fast. Yeah, and that got me. I was out all day yesterday and I just those nuts and I was good.
Yeah, and it keeps you from what? Having to go to a vending machine. So, for example, I'm about to do a big trip and I'm going to be in airports for a day. Well, I pretty much stock my pack with stuff that I know is going to keep me from being tempted to go into one of these, because there's very rarely is the case that there's good food
I
in
have
the
a
airport.
theory when I fly, because I fly so much. I fast when I fly because I feel since I'm just sitting there sedentary, my body doesn't need that. I'm not needing the energy to burn. So that's when I fast.
Yeah, that's the best time to fast. I would agree with you if you're going to have a sedentary day. And I generally, like most of the jet lag prescriptions, I double up on water.
Yes.
So, well, this has been helpful. What else would you like to tell the audience as far as why they need to incorporate and how they can get in touch with you as far as incorporating more movement and dance into their lives?
Yeah, for sure. People can get in touch with me through my website, through Instagram. Well, I'll also include the Dancing Hacks link, which anybody can download.
How many classes is that, or how long is
I
it?
think there's 5 dancing hacks and 2 bonus hacks. So if you just do it at your own pace, you can have it for a lifetime. And they're tutorials. They're short lessons, and you can do them in your living room and anywhere you want.
And as far as your this upcoming year, is there any big things that you're working on that you want to share, or tours or anything like that?
On tour in Europe this summer, particularly London and France. So that's where I'll be live. And
Doing what? Doing what
a
exactly?
combination of different types of workshops, whether in dance and self-development or both combined.
Okay. These workshops, are they generally in person, or do you do
love
them
in
online as
person.
well? Or
I missed in person. Both. I like online. I obviously during the pandemic I was doing them online, but I really enjoy in person.
Yeah, well, when it comes to dance, I don't think anybody would argue with you on online versus in person. I think when it comes to something like yoga, so it's a lot easier to take online because you're more or less following cues, versus dance. I think that's something, like you mentioned before, it's way more effective to be there with a partner or in the, getting coached directly.
I mean, particularly for partner dance, I will say for just one-on-one or group class, depending on the style, it works fine online.
I would not be surprised, Fayzah. So it's if 5 years from now, if the VR has really tapped into dancing to where you can dance with virtual partners and things like that. By the way, I'm not saying that's a substitute for real dance. I'm simply stating that between the goggles and hands and stuff, you can work on your movements in a way you're going to get instant feedback from a virtual instructor. Just my 2 cents.
I'm sure you're right about that.
All right. Anything else you'd like to share with the audience, Fayzah?
I'll just say 2 things. As an antidote to stress, anxiety, depression, movement and dance is so beneficial. And even just, when we're faced with fear, for example, when most people have a fear response if they get a phone call and they get some, information they don't want to hear, or there's a threat, some kind of perceived threat in the way. And if people are listening are familiar with fear responses, maybe we fight or we flee or we freeze. There's different, fear responses. So movement in dance is so vital for, just without even music, just starting to sort of move the body. And then you become aware of the breath, like, oh, was I holding my breath? And then, and then we're not keeping the breath so shallow, but allowing the breath to kind of enter and visually, I do a lot of sensory imagery as well, like actually visualizing the breath in the form of ocean waves or liquid white light going down the arms, the legs, and yeah. Moving.
It's funny you say that. When I'm working on my breathing, like if I'm having trouble going back to sleep and I'm just trying to focus on my breathing, I have purple waves.
Ooh.
I've learned to visualize like my breath being a purple wave. And the reason I have to do that, Fayzah, is because the visualization and listening to the breath requires so much focus that I'm not thinking about what I have to do at the office tomorrow or how somebody ticked me off that day or whatever. It's just, it forces me, by having the color, the visualization, all those things, it forces me to be in the moment. This has been a real joy, Fayzah.
Thank you. This has been a pleasure. Thank you, Daniel.
Yeah. All right. Well, I will share the links to your Dance Hacks video and your Instagram in the show notes today. And I appreciate you so much.
Thank you so much. And thank you for teaching me about coffee.